Hello everybody and welcome to ReactionLand. I'm your host, John Marshall.
Yes.
If you're new to the channel, please remember to like and subscribe. Go ahead and smack that bell to be notified of future upcoming episodes. On tonight's show, we have a requested reaction for the Foxes and Fossils performing Nowhere Man. And it all begins right now. Welcome to ReactionLand. Tonight's episode was requested by Cindy Temple. Thank you, Cindy. Here we go.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Doesn't have a point of view, knows not where he's going to. Isn't he a bit like you and me? Nowhere man, please listen. You don't know what you're missing. Nowhere man, the world is at your command. He's as blind as he can be, just sees what he wants to see. Nowhere man, can you see me at all? Nowhere man, don't worry, take your time, don't hurry, leave it all till somebody else lends you a hand. Doesn't have a point of view, knows not where he's going to. Isn't he a bit like you and me? Nowhere man, please listen. You don't know what you're missing. Nowhere man, the world is at your command. He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Making all his nowhere plans for nobody.
Very nice.
I thought we got it.
I like that one.
Oh, yeah.
That is a classic Beatles song right there. Nowhere Man. We had Ross King on bass. Toby playing the Foxycaster. It's always fun to see somebody playing that one. And Darwin, of course. Tim Purcell on lead vocals. This was a very simple setup. I really enjoyed it. It was 4 players at Tim's house, and of course Ross King at his location. No Sammy and no Maggie on that one, and like I said, it was just a very simple setup, but yet a very effective and full sound. And it was just a pleasure and total ear candy, if I do say so myself. Chase's voice is like a beautiful aroma to this song. It just... a sweet bell. And Darwin, of course, filling in the beautiful middles. This was definitely a Beatles song at its best. I'm a huge fan of this group, and I'm very happy to call a few of these people my friend. I appreciate the conversations that we have, whether it be on film or just a personal call. It always means so much to me. I can't help but be a little beside myself when it comes to thinking about how this all really began with Ross's older brother, Scott King, who had agreed to do one of my shows. And unfortunately, we never got around to doing it because of his health problems. And when Scott started going downhill, it happened pretty quick. And at least from my point of view, because I really, over those last couple of weeks, I was just pretty much texting him on Facebook, and usually he would take a couple of days to respond, but he'd always respond. I want to say it was a couple of days later that I had finally said, "Hey, are you okay?" was the last thing that I had texted to him, and there was no response. A couple days later, I had learned that he had passed away, and I was just mortified by that, and I just couldn't even believe it, because I was so looking forward to the interview with him and getting to meet him and talk to him on a one-on-one basis. And my biggest regret is that it'll never happen. But I'm so grateful that Ross befriended me, and through Ross I get the pleasure of hearing about his older brother. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and roll a clip of a pre-recorded interview that I did with Ross King not too long ago, and he was talking about generally his part in this song, and he was sharing some stories and memories about the making of it. So let's go ahead and roll that clip. Joining us on the show this morning to react to Nowhere Man is the Nowhere Man himself, Mr. Ross King. Good morning, Ross.
Good morning, John. How's it going?
Oh, another day, another adventure.
That's right. It's always a pleasure to see you and to talk to you. Thank you so much for checking in with me.
Definitely a pleasure to see you, and always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
So Nowhere Man, I notice another hidden gem with you strumming away the bass guitar.
Yeah.
Take us a little behind the scenes of the recording of this. And I know it had to mean something to you, because it's, of course, a Lennon and McCartney song.
But yeah, I'm a huge Beatles fan. So doing the Nowhere Man was fun for me.
What was your favorite part of this? I mean, what really stood out to you as being uniquely different from the original?
Well, for me, it was unique because no drums, and this was they have the luxury to, when they have certain band members in the town together, they will get together just to talk about things, and then sometimes song ideas, or in this case, the four of them were around to do some different kinds of songs that are just for fun and for not necessarily as polished of a video, or it's more of an idea where when they get together with the Patreon group, that the group who choose to be Patreons, they get some bonuses for helping the band in their endeavors. And this is one of those examples of a song where it was initially shown to the Patreons as a little treat for them. And then, so when Tim told me about it, I was so happy, because I love playing Paul McCartney stuff. And I'm a big Beatles fan, no matter who wrote what. I like all four of them. I don't have a favorite. Paul is obviously an influence, but my influences are wide and vast, but my diligence to do what they did was not as spectacular. So just because he's a huge influence doesn't mean that I know every single line that Paul did. I'm not going to be that guy and make believe. I love playing stuff that he did. And I constantly, when I listen to Beatles songs, I always love hearing what he's doing. He was very unique. You know, in the early days, he was, you know, taking advantage of bass lines that are standard. Things like that. And that's still great stuff. But as he, you know, as the band stopped playing live and they started going studio in the sense of it, of what everybody pretty much loves about Paul, vocally and songwriting and bass playing, not everybody loves every single thing that each Beatle does. I do. But it's hard for me to be a snob about anything good in music. I just like everything. But, you know, he got pretty daggone impressive as the years went by. And the Nowhere Man line is a really fun rolling kind of bass line. So it was fun to play. And there's a few spots in there, you know, in previous talks, we've talked about sometimes my approach is pretty much to learn and listen to what was going on in the original arrangements. And then if it's a noticeable line, if it's going to be, then you have to do that. You know, you can't just play that song, Dear Prudence, without doing it. And if you did, it'd kind of be a drag to, you know, I mean, so a lot of the things that come out of Paul are just his musicality. But, you know, they're not all, you know, technically challenging, but it's, you know, there's uniqueness to each line. Yeah. But in Nowhere Man, there was, I had a hard time getting some reference to where I could actually hear everything that was going on with Paul. In the, you know, some of the early recordings, you can hear it, but, you know, it can get muddled up. So there's a few spots that I'm not exactly, you know, doing what Paul did, but that's not what I do. So I hope that everyone is understanding of that and can be somewhat submissive of the fact that I'm not trying to duplicate every single note that he played. It would take a lot of time for me to do that homework. And then quite honestly, my memory may fade and different things would drop of any arrangement that I've learned. That happens a lot anyway in music. You know, bass lines, some of them are, you gotta have it in popular music, but in other songs, it's supportive. So right. You don't necessarily have to be riffing the exact riff, you know. But in the song I enjoyed, it's a rolling bass line. It's super fun to play. And, you know, the weirdest part for me was that I didn't have Johnny Pike to lean on. So there are occasions in there that I think I'm a little soon, or I may be behind a bit. And that's just the part of the way it went for that recording. I remember I had Scott Cale recorded me doing the video there. And so we got the two angles they like to get. And then I had done enough homework on the line to where I just kind of repeated everything. And then the hardest part for me was kind of just finding where I needed to be tempo-wise. But other than that, man, it was just a blast to do it. And I think it came out well.
Well, folks, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm John Marshall. Till the very next time that we meet, God bless you.
What's the matter with you? Open your mouth and say ah. Ah.